right, so there's a new, brand spanking new, deadly, dangerous wildfire taking place in California again. So this is the Hughes fire. Right now, what's happening? A new fast-moving wildfire has erupted in Los Angeles County, prompting tens of thousands of people to evacuate a region already reeling from the most destructive fires in its history. And folks, the fires that took place earlier last week left a huge scar. Now, there's a lot of firefighters who are coming forward, or who can't come forward, but are secretly telling people that they are being exposed not only in their firehouses to dangerous mold and other irritants, but also for the fact that the infrastructure in place to put out these fires isn't working properly. And again, this is happening. This was an article of 4 hours ago from the BBC. Everybody that's tuning in, especially those in the Los Angeles County, please be safe. The Hughes fire ignited 45 miles northwest of the city of Los Angeles Wednesday morning near Cassack Lake, a mountainous area that borders several residential areas and schools. So the people in that area, please be safe, and I hope nothing bad happens to your homes. But knowing how devastating the previous fires were and how a lot of firefighters were unable to put out the fires, Los Angeles is once again under siege. It grew to more than 10,000 acres in several hours on Wednesday, fueled by winds and dry brush. No homes or businesses have been damaged, at least at this point, and officials expressed confidence about getting it under control. The new fire is north of the two mammoth blazes that have destroyed a number of neighborhoods this month. Local news showed residents near the Hughes fire hosing down their homes and gardens with water, and others rushing to evacuate. Orange flames lined the mountains as aircraft dropped water and flame retardant. The region is once again under a red flag warning, continuing through Thursday. This cautions of a high fire risk due to strong winds and dry, low humid conditions. Winds in the area were blowing at about 20 to 30 miles per hour, but could pick up, which would fan the blaze to make it harder for air crews to operate. So that's what's happening. I want to pull up this video here. Actually, just this video right here. It's only 30 seconds, but this is what was taking place yesterday.
Hughes Road. 3 of these helicopters flew out of Whiteman Airport in Pacoima, along with News Chopper 4. I'm hearing on the scanner they called for 2 additional tankers. I'm going to zoom back wide and show you what we are seeing out the helicopter window. This is massive, and this is growing before our eyes. This is not like that small brush fire that we covered yesterday or the one before that. This is something to be concerned about. Huge.
But there's also more imagery too.
Let's call a fire tornado coming at you. Temperatures 200 to 300 degrees. Roaring. It's crazy.
But I also want to pull this up here because this has to deal with how the firefighters are dealing with water loss, and also how they're struggling to take out these fires.
We ran out of water in the first tank about 4:45 p.m. yesterday. We ran out of water in the second tank about 8:30 p.m. and the third tank about 3 a.m. this morning. Those tanks help with the pressure on the fire hydrants and the hills of Palisades. And because we were pushing so much water in our trunk line, and so much water was being used before it can get to the tanks, we were not able to fill the tanks fast enough. So the consumption of water was faster than we can provide water in our trunk line. So I want to make sure that you understand there's water on the trunk line. It just cannot get up the hill because we cannot fill the tanks fast enough.
What is the number of hydrants that could not get water because of these pressure issues? What percentage of the system in Pacific Palisades wasn't getting service at that point?
We were trying to keep water at all altitudes on the Palisades, and I think about 3 in the morning, that's when the hydrants went dry above the Brentwood area. We are able to push water on that trunk line on the east side of that, and we have some water on higher elevations, 16 to 18,000, but at 3,000, at 3 a.m., all of the fire hydrants went dry in the Palisades. What are we doing now? We're sending about 20 water tanks for our construction crews full of water to support the fire department. We identify other areas in our system where our tankers can refill. It takes about 30 minutes to refill about 4,000 gallons of water, and we're constantly moving that water to the fire department to get them as much water as we can. For the people on zip code 90272, because we're pushing the water system so hard, our water quality is decreasing. So we're gonna be issuing a boil water notice this morning, and that will extend for about 48 hours. The water quality is low. We have a lot of ash in the system. And so please, if you're gonna be drinking water, you need to boil the water. Those boil waters will continue to increase as the system starts restoring.
So they're already struggling to maintain and put out the fires. So many people right now evacuating these areas, especially in the residential areas. But knowing how the infrastructure is failing all over California, I don't want to say history is going to be repeating itself, but it also calls into question just really what's going on in these fire departments, what's happening with many of these local firehouses that are struggling just to make ends meet. Because these firefighters, including the prison firefighters, they're working with scraps at this point. And I only can imagine even too what they have to go through. Case in point, this video here, if you haven't seen it already, please share it. But the Free Press just completed an investigation into the Los Angeles Fire Department. The main host went to over 20 fire departments and they're all falling apart. And when you hear about black mold and firefighters living on the boat instead of the firehouse, it comes as no surprise, really, just why these fires aren't being maintained and contained.
LA fire stations are falling apart, and there are some that are even dangerous. Over the past few days, I've probably been to 20 firehouses, and what I've seen has been absolutely infuriating. It is impossible to get anything fixed. Most of the firemen I've talked to this week do the repairs at the stations themselves with their own money.
Now, that shouldn't happen where the firefighters have to use their own money to repair the equipment. You know, in theory, in an ideal world, and I think we're going to have some democracy in the chat, I think all of us would agree that, you know, the city and state should pay for those repairs. Let's have democracy in the chat. Should the firefighters be using their own money to fix the equipment? Type 1 for yes, Kit. It's perfectly fine. Nothing to worry about. Everything's A-okay. Type 2, no, that's not okay. And this is very concerning because how bad is this going to get? I wonder how many 2s will be in the chat.
I'm not exaggerating this. The very first firehouse I pulled up to, there were firemen in the back filling in a pothole with sand. If LAFD finds out you've made any of your own repairs, you're punished. I have talked to firemen that have to barter supplies with other stations to get the supplies that they need. At the next station, when I asked the fireman if I can come in and document the damage, he said, just take pictures of the outside of the building and you'll know what the inside is like. This fire station, its garage door has been broken for a year. They've begged and begged LAFD in to fix it, who was punishing them for not having quick enough response times. And it got repaired this week only because the local community stepped in and fundraised money. There's stuff like this citywide, and LAFD is terrified you'll find out because they know you'll be pissed. The mold infestation at Los Angeles Fire Station 112 was so bad, it sent its fire chief to the hospital. He was on life support for 3 weeks. His leg turned black and they had to amputate his thumb.
All right. Look, not a medical expert, but I'm pretty much well confident when I say this. No human being should be in breathing distance of mold. Mold has, again, been proven to be very fatal for humans. You shouldn't be breathing it in. You shouldn't be anywhere near it. It is a hazard and must be removed immediately because it's toxic to your lungs. Do not gamble with your lives, my friends, because mold is something you don't want to play with. Especially if you are in a firehouse and if you're a firefighter and, you know, you have to be active. Your lungs have to be working, you know, just so that you can be moving around that heavy equipment. And yes, I'm very well aware that these firefighters are exposing themselves to smoke and other dangerous stuff. But when they go to their firehouse, in theory, that should be a very safe space, a safe space, a real safe space for them to live when they're away from their families and friends. So that way, when they're about to do an emergency to put out a fire, you know, they go right back to a very safe place. They shouldn't have a sense of dread of, oh, God, how am I going to sleep here for the next few days?
Mold is a huge problem. It isn't just one fire department. It's like 15 and very well.
This is not good. If you got a weak stomach, look away. Even on the outside,
one
not good.
Fire department. It's like
not good.
15 and very.
That's really not good because, hey, aren't those beds?
Very well.
And, oh, how'd it get like that?
Documented. Going back to
112, and it's documented.
Station 112. After complaints and complaints, I talked with a guy who self-financed his own mold test. When the inspector came, he told him it was the worst case of mold he'd seen in his life. Another fireman here refused to go into the kitchen because every time he did, his face would break out and hide. The firemen here were sleeping on the fireboat until their higher up told them they had to stop doing that because it looked bad.
How bad is it that they can't sleep in the firehouse, that they have to resort to sleeping on the boat? The boat is safer. The boat. Better than the building. Now, I get it. Hey, sleeping on a boat here and there. But see, that's not a boat designed for people to live in. It's a boat for work. And things are so bad in that firehouse that they got to go ahead and live there until their higher up told them, don't do that again. It looks bad on us. Well, then fix the building.
Why is this like this? There's multiple reasons, but the biggest is the union. An active fireman told me there's a lack of funding, goes nowhere bureaucracy, inaccessible chain of command, and mismanagement. So look, I'm not intimate with this union's policies, but if it's any indication, they might have the one flagpole I have seen in the city that's not flying at half-mast. Seems like they have a lot of respect. A fireman told me every fireman in the city are terrified to talk to you. This is actually the reason why firemen can't talk to media. As a fireman told me, it's their way of damage control. And anyone knows if they talk to media, they'll be fired. I've had a gut-wrenching week talking to people who have lost their houses every single day. And this is the first story where I've had someone in tears in front of me. I need to thank Watchdog LA for pointing me in the direction of these stories. Over the next few weeks, you're gonna see people behind podiums downtown being like, these are our city's heroes. And I just want you to know, the moment they step away from that podium, they're okay with their heroes being treated like dogs.
Shout out to Free Press. Thank you for that update because, these firefighters who are putting their lives on the line, including the prison firefighters too, are working with scraps at this point. And yes, these politicians will do that Coca-Cola classic line of, there are heroes, and then leave them behind. Remember, in 2020, first responders were called heroes, as well as retail workers and anybody else, frontline heroes, and then dismissed. If you are calling them heroes, maybe invest more into their protection too, like their buildings working and being safe to live in, the equipment working, the reservoirs filled with water. I mean, it's not a difficult job, Governor of California, Gavin Newsom. It's not a difficult job, Karen Bass of LA. I mean, if there are problems, then fine. Say, hey, there's a situation. Maybe, if our leaders, and I get it, people might be ashamed, be like, oh, there's a terrible thing. It's going to make me look bad. But there's maybe, I don't know, just going before people saying, hey, look, there's a situation at hand here that we got to fix and we need your help. We need to reach out. We need to do some. You're telling me that you can't do this? I mean, California is famous for wildfires. These past 4 years, there's been dangerous fires, and they've been getting worse and worse and worse. LA County, which holds the city of Los Angeles, a major metropolitan city, is dying before our eyes in real time. And I don't know if it'll ever be able to recover. There's been a lot of retailers, housing experts, especially in retail, who are looking at this and seeing firsthand, I don't know how we're going to rebuild these communities. This is billions upon billions of dollars lost, but yet we have billions of dollars be put into these ridiculous wars or bailing out banks. Now all of this falls upon Trump. And I hope that he has a different solution than a one-time $700 payment. Balls in your court, Trump. But these fires are taking place in LA, and to our allies in the independent media sphere, Matt Weinglass, Jimmy Dore, Steph, Kim Iverson, and everybody else, please be safe. To the firefighters, You know, I get that there's fear of stepping forward, but these fires are only going to get worse. And the only way to stop it now is for people, the public, to know just how bad you guys are being treated, and also altogether the failure of the leadership.